Hi, my name is Lauren O'Connell, and my videos help you to enhance and nurture both your inner and outer beauty. I just had to make a video on this topic, and over the weekend, I was just drinking my cappuccino on Instagram, skipping through everything. I think my son was asking me to make him chicken nuggets. Just as I saw on Cosmopolitan Middle East Insta stories that Becca Cosmetics is shutting down. I think I actually spit my coffee out on my son. I couldn't believe it. And I have to say, it made me feel quite wistful. Now, as you know, I am a contributing beauty editor for Cosmo. I live here in Dubai, and usually I'm in the know with the makeup news, but this one, I did and I didn't see it coming. Now, this whole Becca Cosmetics, it makes me feel quite wistful. And that's because way back, I'm talking about 20 years ago, when I was about 20, I used to, this is before we had iPhones, smartphones, we had anything like this. Before social media, influencers, none of that existed. If you wanted to know what was really going on in the makeup world, aside from what you would read in magazines, you had to go on this website. It was called Makeupally.com. And maybe if you're around my age, you know what I'm talking about. But this was sort of our way to know makeup news back then. And the website was so basic, and it was set up a lot like Reddit, where you could write in the title, people would just start writing something about makeup, and there were so many little acronyms, slang words you'd use that were just really specific to the website. And then in the body of the text, you would just continue, saying whatever you wanted to say. And there would be, one topic and 100 threads, sub-threads, all those things underneath. I used to spend, back then we lived in Chicago, and I would spend hours and hours and hours just on that website reading makeup news. I remember my husband would say, "What are you doing?" And he said, "How could you just stare at that for so long?" And I was just obsessed with it. I should have started a YouTube channel when I first, knew about this whole sort of world coming out, but back then I didn't. I was in nursing school, and then we moved to Dubai, had kids, all that stuff. Never thought of doing it. Anyways, one of the brands that was sort of viral on this group was Becca Cosmetics, and it was super niche back then. It was very cult beauty brand, and it wasn't available at Sephora yet, I don't think. And I remember when I bought some of the products, and that was really one of my first forays into the high-end cosmetics world, the niche beauty world. And I think I bought it either on Beautylish, if it was available on Beautylish, or I bought it on Becca's website. I don't quite remember, but I remember when I got that, I felt like I was in on this big secret in the world of amazing makeup that a lot of people just didn't know about. And the makeup itself was quite basic. I remember they had an ombre palette. It was maybe 5 different shades. One was shimmery, and it was just different shades of nudes. But just having it made me feel so special. I had the Becca products. They were okay. I mean, it wasn't the best makeup I ever had. It was more about buying the feeling, I think, than buying the makeup itself. And, I used them, and then time went on, we moved, and we lived in Dubai. We moved to Dubai in 2009, and Becca wasn't available here. So sort of, they kind of faded out of my consciousness. Well, then Jaclyn Hill came out with her C-Pop, which is what it's called in Dubai, champagne pop, but here we call it C-Pop. Here it is. And this one, though, is champagne pop, so I must have bought this in the US. But she kind of just breathed so much life into this brand, and all of a sudden they were on YouTube, they were mainstream, and I was really excited about it because I thought to myself, well, now Becca's going to get huge. They'll come out with so many more products. I can't wait. But then they got into this whole controversy, and I feel like they were one of the first, at least they were one of the first ones where I remember a controversy. Keep in mind, I'm older than most of these YouTube influencers in this whole kind of world, so I think I just see it from a different perspective. And I remember thinking how ridiculous it was from a business standpoint, or I would say from a social media standpoint, that they went, from a business standpoint, I guess it was good in terms of revenue, but I know that they went and used a different manufacturer, and the products were completely different than what they were supposed to be, and that's when they got into all the trouble. Well, I remember saying to myself, oh my gosh, like that is what a mistake. And it didn't feel to me like this was the brand that I was initially buying into, because back then it was, I don't know, it just seemed so much more personal, and now it was becoming very impersonal. Then they did come out to Dubai, they launched here, but when they launched here, no one talked about it. No one really knew about it. No one seemed to care about it. It was only me. I was like, wow, Becca's coming to Dubai. This is great news. And you know, I'm posting on Instagram and everything, and no one cares. So then the champagne pop came out, and I think that got a little bit of a buzz, but it wasn't much. And honestly, no one talked about Becca Cosmetics, only here and there. And when I would go to the Sephora in the Dubai Mall, you know, the Becca stand would be there, the kiosk, you know what I'm talking about. It's the same thing here as it is back in the US, but it was just boring. There was never anything super exciting about it, and it definitely didn't really resonate, I don't think, with the rest of the store. It just didn't seem to fit in. I buy a ton of makeup. I buy a ton of makeup. I love buying makeup. And I, you know, would always walk by the Becca. The blushes were very loud looking. I love blushes, but it just, I don't know, I never really wanted anything of theirs. I do have an Instagram account. I'm a Instagram blogger, I guess you could say, in Dubai. And I go to the big Sephora PR events. And about 4 times a year, Sephora has these incredibly big, fancy events where all the brands fly in, and you know, they really promote and talk about their new products coming out. It's a big deal. And Becca, I think maybe one time they had a table, but they don't stand out in my mind at all whenever I went to those events. And when I came home, they would give us huge bags. I mean, it was like Christmas and your birthday and the last day of school, like everything good just sort of rolled into one event. That's what it felt like for me, at least. And the Becca product that they would give would always be like a trial size highlighter, which is fine in terms of the, you know, these things are expensive. I understand it from a financial aspect, but at the same time, they're just, the hype and the everything, that feeling just wasn't there. And I remember a few years ago, 3 years ago almost, I was in Manhattan all summer long. I went to the New York Film Academy. I studied broadcast journalism, and it was just me. Kids were with my parents. My husband was in Dubai, so it was an interesting experience. I was 35 at the time. And I remember Becca got in trouble that summer. I remember talking about it with the people in my class, and they got in trouble because they had put an Instagram post of 3 models, a light skin tone, medium skin tone, deep skin tone, and they had photoshopped the palm of the woman with the deeper skin tone. And I remember they got in a lot of trouble for that. And I remember thinking that everything to me that was so special and unique and amazing about the brand had just, I don't know, like who's running this? And I just felt really disappointed. I remember showing it to somebody, and they're like, oh, that looks like such a crappy brand, or something like that. And it made me think of like my back in the day, how in love I was with the brand and where it was now. And I just felt, wow, they have completely lost touch. The final straw for, well, that, I mean, I had stopped buying Becca a long time ago. Anything Becca I had was given to me through PR from Sephora, or I did buy a few of their limited edition highlighters now and then. The latest one I had was a pink one. It had a pinky purpley type of chrome. Maybe you remember the one I'm talking about. Anyways, when we just moved, I'm in my garden right now, but when we moved to our villa, I threw out everything I hadn't been using, and all of my Becca stuff was there. I must have kept this one for nostalgia because I never use it. I did put it on today for this video, but I haven't used this in forever. Anyways, the Zero Pigment foundation they came out with, to me that was just, it was so gimmicky. It was just so, it was cheesy. And some people did ask me what I thought of the Zero Pigment foundation, and I said, you know, it's a silicone, it's a silicone gel. It's some sort of primer, or it's don't buy it, it's ridiculous. And they're like, oh, but it doesn't have silicone in it. And I said, okay, well, they're using other things to give you that same effect. I ended up getting a sample of it in a Sephora order, so I tried it on one half of my face. This is just about 2 weeks ago on my Insta stories, and no one could really tell the difference. Only a few people did, and no one was wowed, especially not me. I also felt like when they started using I know that they had the whole thing with Jaclyn Hill, and then after that, the next person I can think of celebrity wise would be Chrissy Teigen, and they did a whole launch with her, but for me that didn't resonate. And Chrissy Teigen seems to me to be one of those people, she's very opinionated, and that can be quite polarizing, so I thought that was an interesting choice for a makeup launch. And I know that they also did something with the Kardashians, and I just felt like, why aren't they doing something more with I don't know, it just seems like to me that there's a lot of YouTubers out there now and Instagrammers that of all different ages too, that they could have done some sort of mass campaign with instead, that would have probably been a lot more successful for them. So anyways, I just feel that the brand they initially were to the brand that they grew to be was just so, the vision got completely skewed somehow, and the brand just hasn't resonated with me for so long. But they did still have a special place in my heart because they were sort of right there at the forefront when I was just getting into really the whole high-end luxury beauty world. So that's just my 2 cents. And as I'm babbling along, if you're wondering what my skincare routines are, I did just update them recently. They are right here. I have a playlist, my morning, evening, and body care routines.